what if a superpower didn't fall to bombs, but to a math error? For decades, the world trembled at Soviet steel and nuclear silos, viewing the USSR as a monolithic giant of industrial precision. But behind the Iron Curtain, the gears of the state were grinding on ghosts. The Soviet Union was a paper superpower, a civilization built on padded reports, fictional quotas, and a data system that deleted reality. When the numbers no longer matched the breadlines, the illusion shattered. The Soviet Union didn't just collapse, it suffered a terminal system failure. To understand this, you have to look at the heart of the machine. Gosplan. This was the state planning committee tasked with a godlike mission. They had to manually calculate the price, production, and distribution of every single item for nearly 300 million people. By the 1930s, they were trying to manage 20,000 different commodities, from heavy industrial turbines to the buttons on a winter coat. But there was a fatal flaw. Without a free market to set prices, Gosplan had no way to know what anything was actually worth. They were flying a jumbo jet in thick fog with no instruments. To cope, they measured success in raw physical units, tons of steel or meters of fabric. This created a system where quality mattered less than weight, rewarding a factory for producing 5,000 left-handed boots. This disconnect forced every manager into a desperate game. If the truth didn't fit the plan, they had to change the truth. This pressure transformed factory managers into creative writers of statistics. In the Soviet economy, failing a quota wasn't just a bad review. It was a fast track to a prison cell. To survive, managers turned to propiski, or over-reporting. It started small, padding monthly output by a few percent to bridge the gap between reality and the party's demands. These tiny lies acted like a slow-acting poison in the economic bloodstream. Because Gosplan used last year's fake numbers to set next year's higher targets, the deception grew every cycle. In Central Asia, officials reported record-breaking cotton harvest while the actual crops rotted. In Pensa, a factory claimed to be operational for a year before construction was even finished. By the 1980s, the national data pool was a hall of mirrors. The Kremlin believed they were leading a global titan, but they were actually reading a work of fiction. The Soviet ruble became a ghost, backed by nothing but forged signatures and imaginary steel. By the late 1980s, this breakdown of value led to the most absurd trade deal in history. When the Soviet Union wanted to renew its contract with PepsiCo, they had no hard currency to pay for the syrup. In a desperate move to keep the soda flowing, the Kremlin offered payment in warships. They traded 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, and a destroyer just to settle the bill. For a brief moment, a soft drink company possessed the 6th largest navy on the planet. This wasn't a strategic move, it was a fire sale of a dying empire. They were reduced to bartering warships because their own money had become a mathematical fiction. As these physical assets were stripped away, an even more dangerous force leaked through the cracks. When Mikhail Gorbachev introduced glasnost, he intended to modernize the union by inviting light into the bureaucracy. He didn't realize the entire system was built on these data illusions. A sudden explosion of transparency acted like a virus, flooding a glitched operating system with more data than it could process. The disaster at Chernobyl served as the ultimate data breach, proving the state would rather protect a faulty ledger than its own citizens. As censored files were opened, the mathematical justification for the USSR's existence simply vanished. The people weren't just losing faith in a political party, they were watching the hard drive of their civilization being wiped clean. When the truth became public, the Soviet Union didn't just lose an argument, it lost its reason to exist. The superpower was deleted by the very facts it had spent decades trying to suppress. The statues of Lenin fell because the math finally reached zero. The Soviet Union was a simulation that ran out of memory. When the fake ledgers finally met the hard truth of an empty shelf, the system deleted itself. I made this with Storyglider, link in bio.